This tutorial will show you how to take a part that has been created with a 3D modeling software. In this case, we're using Autodesk Inventor Pro. I'll show you how to take that part and convert it into a 3D print file so that it can be created with a 3D printer. And then also how to take that print file and upload it to Thingiverse.com so that it will be published and available for the whole world to use and to see. We're going to start with our 3D part in Inventor. It's been created and saved. The 3D printer and the 3D print software doesn't know how to understand the file that Inventor saves in. So we've got to go and save a copy as, and we're going to use a .stl file extension. So we'll come up here to the icon in the upper left corner. We want to go to Save As, hover over and click on Save Copy As. We don't need to change the name. We will want to choose our file location. In this case, we're going to save it in 3D print files. We've got a specific folder for this job, and where it says Save As Type, we want to change that to a .stl file, which is right there. I didn't see it at first, but a .stl file right there. We'll click on that and go ahead and hit save. Once that's done, we can go ahead and minimize that window, and we're going to open up Makerware, which is the 3D print software that we use. And we want to bring in our part. And you do that by clicking on Add and finding the location that we saved that in, and it was on the desktop, and it was in 3D print files, and there it is right there. So we can double click on that. Now one thing we can see here, we can zoom in on this, is that it brings it in very small. It converts it to 1/10 the size when it brings it into the software out of Inventor. So what we've got to do is click on it, double click on Scale, and change that by a factor of 10. So we'll just change any one of these 3 dimensions, X, Y, or Z axis, and just multiply it by 10. So right now it's 8.05 millimeters, so we're going to change that to 80.5 and click Enter. Now we can take a look at it here and see that it's much bigger. Right now, however, the part is upside down, so the lip that we're going to push down on when we cut the cookie out is up, and if we try to print that way, our design will sag. So we want to flip that. So if we can click on this and go to Turn, we are going to rotate around the y-axis twice, and then I want to turn it and go ahead and turn it so that it's sitting on the build platform here lengthwise. It will print a little bit better that way, and we're going to rotate around the z-axis. Once that's done, everything should be in place. I always like to double check and make sure that it's sitting on the platform. So if we click on the part, go to the Move button, and click on Platform just to be sure. You'll notice I'm kind of clicking all over the place and windows are popping up and then closing. This user interface is still a work in progress. This is freeware software, and it's really kind of in a beta phase, and so they're working the kinks out. So it doesn't work, it doesn't function quite the same as some of the other software we use, but you'll get a hang of it pretty quickly. So once this is done, this is ready to print. So I can go up to here and export, and there's a couple different options in this dialog box. If the computer is hooked directly to the 3D printer, I can click on Make It Now, and it will go ahead and make it right away. However, this computer is not, and so we're going to export it to a file. We'll move that file to the 3D printer and print it remotely. We're using the Replicator 2, and that's what it's set up for here. We're going to leave all of our options here the same. This is a small enough part we can get by with a 10% infill. It will still be plenty solid. We want to print it on a raft so that it sticks to the build platform a little bit better. Once we have that done, we can click on Export, find where we want to put it, and we're going to go ahead and put it in that 3D Print Files folder. We can keep the name the same, save, and you'll notice in the corner here it's going through all of the necessary motions to make sure that it's going to print correctly. So it's verifying the print, making sure everything's correct. Now it's doing a print to file action, and so that it's actually writing the code now that the 3D printer will follow when we hook it up to that machine. Once those boxes are gone, it's done. We're done with that. So now we can move this to the printer and print. Now to take this part and to put it on Thingiverse and publish it, we need to go to the Thingiverse website, which I'm already logged into, and I'm already logged into the Thingiverse website here. We're going to click on Create and Upload a Thing. A thing in this case is just any 3D printed part that you want to put on here. You'll notice that this Thingiverse website is put out by MakerBot. That's the type of machine that we have. MakerBot is really kind of the leader in desktop 3D printing and working with this new technology. Okay, so this screen is pretty easy to follow, so let's go on down. We're going to start by choosing the file that we want to put in. The design file is needed to make your thing. So we're going to go find out where we had it. We put it on desktop. We had it in 3D print files. And we want to make sure that we put in the X3G file. That's the G-code written file. It's the much larger one. And that is the file that the 3D printer will use to print. The reason it's so large is because there's so many lines of code within that file that the 3D printer will follow. So we'll upload that and check our progress. Very good. We can add a picture in. In this case, I took a screenshot of the cookie cutter when it was in the Makerware software, and I had done that already, and I can add that screenshot in. Just that gives us a little bit of an icon so that if somebody is searching on Thingiverse.com, they will be able to know what the part looks like that they are thinking about printing or thinking about using. You could also take a picture of the finished part and upload onto it. Since we don't have a finished part yet, we're just going to use a screenshot. Scroll down. It needs a name. I'm just going to call this a cross cookie cutter because it's a cookie cutter shaped like a cross. Description, it says keep it concise, and that's exactly what we're going to do. As you'll see, there'll be some places on the bottom where we can add more detail. And I'm just going to call this a cross-shaped cookie cutter. This is a pretty self-explanatory part, so we don't need much of a description. If it was something that was more complicated, then we could add a little bit more description to that. We want to select a category to upload it to. So what kind of thing is this? It helps other users narrow down their search when they're looking for things. In this case, we're going to go to household and kitchen and dining is what this is for. Tags, again, this is to make it easier to find in a search, and I'm going to tag it as cookie, and I'm also going to tag it as cutter, or cookie cutter, excuse me, and also as cross, just to make it a little bit easier to find. The license option says choose how you want your thing to be used by others. We're going to leave it on the default, which is Creative Commons Attribution and Share Alike. That is going to be the most open source way, that is the least restricted way to share this, so that really anybody that wants to use this can. It is not a work in progress right now, it's a finished part, so we're going to leave that unchecked. And then we can add a little detail here. Instructions tell us how you made your thing. You can go into as much detail as you want. I'm just going to keep it simple and say that I created this part with Autodesk Inventor Pro and printed it with a MakerBot Replicator 2 printer. As for sources, what was your thing inspired by, deriven from, or a remix of? You don't have to put that if you don't want to, or you could say if you found another part on this website that made you think, okay, I really liked that part. I want to make something similar. You could search for it and tag that other person's part to yours. Since this was just something that we kind of created and didn't use any other inspiration from the Thingiverse website, we're going to leave that blank. You can go through and proofread everything, make sure that it's all correct, and when you are done, click Publish. You can also save this draft and then come back to it later. Since we're ready to go, we're going to click on Publish. And we are missing a file. Must have at least one type of file. So this file that we used here didn't upload. And so let's go ahead and put the desktop. .stl file on there as well, because it's asking us to put the .stl file. Now it will allow us to publish. And it's saving, so we'll give it a minute to make sure it works. And it looks like it did. Now somebody else can download it. We could go through and edit it if we liked to. Our changes were saved successfully. And it was saved by our username. That's all there is to it.